Hello and welcome to the Field of Streams podcast for Friday, September 16th. I'm your host, Dylan Higgins, joined by my co-host, Brad Johnson. Brad, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. It is early over here in Oregon where I am. I actually have a bunch of fog out, I just noticed. Maybe end of summer over here, but I'm doing well. We are joined by Scott Strandberg for a live show this morning. Scott, how are you doing?
I'm good. It's a very gray, rainy day here as well. So lots of grayness outdoors today.
Yeah, officially end of summer.
Well,
Brad, you still summery over there?
It's sunny and high 80s right now. I'll be 90s later.
Well, we're doing a live show here again on a Friday morning. We got about 3 more of these left, so I wanted to get Scott in here one more time here for some September baseball. Glad you could join us, Scott. If you are watching us live online, you can join us in the chat, in the post, and ask your DFS questions for today. We'll get to those. We'll get involved, and then we're going to look at all this DFS stuff for Friday, of which, as always, there's plenty. But let's get some baseball stuff out of the way first. Matt and I didn't get to talk about this on Thursday. Brad, do you have any takes on this AJ Preller thing? This really weird suspension story. It's not DFS related, but it's definitely a weird thing going on in baseball right now.
It is weird, and it kind of takes for granted another weird aspect that this is what I've been focused on, is that player medical records, no concept of privacy involved with them. It's taken for granted that every team will enter every little thing, including like taking aspirin into a central database for every other team to look at. Mm-hmm. It seems a little strange to me. And I know Tony Clark, the union chief, has talked about that being something that's on his agenda, getting something resembling a system to ensure privacy for his players.
Yeah.
It's a weird system they have set up right now.
It's a weird system. It's a weird story. Scott, did you have anything on the AJ Preller thing? I admittedly don't have any hot takes or anything. I just found it was a weird story that we needed to at least mention.
I mean, it is weird when you've got multiple teams complaining. How the Marlins and the White Sox have both kind of been questioning things as well. I mean, the Marlins even sent Colin Rea back.
Yeah.
So no hot takes, of course, but it does seem to be a pattern.
Yeah.
Of some sorts. So.
Yeah, it's weird, and it's the second suspension for AJ Preller, which doesn't look good.
How many twice suspended GMs have there ever been in the history of baseball?
Well, and my dad asked me, he saw the story, and he goes, how do they monitor and ensure that a GM is suspended? Like, they're not keeping an eye on him, making sure, they take his cell phone away?
Yeah.
He's going to continue working. He's going to be involved in decisions. It's not a real thing. He's not paid for 10 days. He's suspended 30 days. He's unpaid for 10. I don't really understand.
He'll miss that.
It's weird. The other thing I want to talk about, a little more DFS related, is Matt and I talked about this on Thursday's show, but it's time for hangover days and hangover lineups, and that is happening today on Friday. Unfortunately, it's the one game not a part of our DFS lineup, but Wrigley Field, the Cubs clinched. The Cubs clinched in the not dramatic fashion where they lost their game, but I forget who lost. The Cardinals lost or something, and so they clinched the Central. Congratulations to the Cubs, fun team. But that means today, day after clinching the division, the lineup is uninspiring. They all the regulars are out. Chris Coughlin's batting 5th, playing first base. Matt Caesar's leading off. And I get it, but it'd be a good day to stream Brewers. But if you play in an all-day DFS lineup, you can do that. Most people don't. It's the one-day game. But Matt and I were saying on Thursday, keep an eye out for this as other teams clinch, because they, like clockwork, will do this. And I guess today it would be Chase Anderson, who usually you would stay away from in Wrigley Field, but this is a different lineup. So, unfortunately, it doesn't quite match up for today DFS wise, but through the weekend, through the rest of the month, keep an eye out for those kinds of things, because you can get some good streamers for sure.
Well, even with the Cubs, they're so deep that I mean, a lot of their bench players who are getting these starts could be really, really good value options too. So
Yeah. Oh yeah, on the other side, absolutely. Yeah, I agree. There's places to go. They're games to watch. They're definitely unique situations that happen, a couple times a year. Brad, you have another daily grind invitational going on today?
Yep, there's another one. We've been back on track in terms of getting them filled. Only had one fail to fill this week, and Friday's usually pretty automatic to get filled.
Cool.
Last week I mentioned we're starting to lose some momentum, but I think we've got Yancey was doing some cheerleading early in the week, and yeah, we're back on track.
Cool. Well, follow Brad on Twitter at BaseballAteam, or check out in our post. There's a link to that. You can join up. You can play DFS with Brad, with other Rotographs listeners. It's a good way to, get back to the community part of fantasy baseball still, and DFS as well, which is good. So you can join up over there. Brad, do you have anything else before we get into this DFS stuff for Friday?
No, I don't think so. Can't come up with
Scott, you have anything that we must address before we start talking?
I really don't.
Cool. Well, let's get rolling here for Friday. We're going to start at catcher. Brad, if you want to get us going, 14 games to pick from on Friday. Who are you looking at catcher on Friday?
So there weren't too many guys that really jumped off the page to me today with catcher. Yasmani Grandal is someone I like in general. Just usually a good play. He's cheap on both sites today, or at least affordable. And he's up against Zach Greinke. Homer against Greinke last time out. Greinke had a 5-homer game against the Dodgers beginning of the month. So this is his rematch, and we'll see how that goes at Chase Field this time. But Grandal is always a power threat. He walks not too high of an average. That's really the downfall to his profile. But still fairly high floor, high ceiling too. Usually one of my favorite catcher plays, and that holds true today. Also liking Wilson Ramos against John Gant, mostly because John Gant's pretty exploitable. He's just kind of a weird pitcher, more funk than stuff. And Ramos seems to be getting back on track. He's saying the right things, at least, saying he was getting distracted by ending free agency. And he's hit well since those comments. If you're looking for a real punt, I like Tucker Barnhart in Cincinnati. He's someone I turn to a lot when I'm trying to get someone at a bargain price. Again, Cincinnati, great park for power, up against Ryan Vogelsong, who's not someone to fear in the least. Barnhart does usually bat 8th. It's a big downside to him.
Yeah, I had Barnhart written down. Matt brings him up a lot too. That's usually a good cheap option. When the Reds are playing, modest pitchers, I have no problem with that. And he hits right, he's pretty okay. So I'm good with that. I also like the Grandal thing. I looked at, picking Dodgers against Zach Greinke, and part of me is like, I don't want to in his peripherals. He's doing that thing again where his peripherals look good, but the results are just bad. He's getting hit. His ERA's, in the 4s, I think you can,
my conclusion about the Dodgers today is not stacking them, but somebody out of that group of lefties is going to have a good game. And I don't know which one it's going to be, but it's going to be somebody.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wouldn't be against putting together a Dodgers stack today, partly because it's so cheap. Like, if you want to play, we'll get to pitching later, obviously, but if you want to play one of the top pitchers today and you still want to be able to put together a stack of any reasonable clout or reasonable upside, you got limited options, and the Dodgers are definitely one of them because their players are cheap enough where you can afford to stack them along with one of today's aces. Because you can't really say that about many of today's stacks. You're not going to be able to afford them and an elite pitcher. It's not going to happen.
That's true, and it actually entered into my decision of not wanting to stack them because not only do I feel Greinke is probably going to have a normal Greinke game where he gives up like 4 runs over 7 innings, but you're also going to see a lot of Dodger stacks out there because of the way the prices are shaking out.
I think, though, a lot of people are still going to, I don't know if a lot of people are going to put that much stock into, Greinke's recent performance. I think a lot of people will see the name and be like, I'm not stacking against Zach Greinke. I don't know.
There's definitely blow-up potential there, as we saw last time he played the Dodgers. I'm not counting on that again, but he's definitely not a guy you can't go against.
It's not it's not like my top choice. You know,
Yeah.
it wouldn't be like, oh, I really gunning to stack the Dodgers today. But like I said, if you want to play one of the elite pitchers, you have limited options on who you're stacking on offense.
Yeah, there's definitely a scenario where he gets hit. Brad, do you have any other catchers that stuck out to you?
No one who's really amazing or anything. It's Russell Martin against Jared Weaver. That's what I like. His price is actually pretty affordable too on DraftKings. Might be where I end up going, just because of how cheap he is.
Sure.
Other than that, there's some guys. They're okay. They have viable matchups, but they're not anything to get excited about.
Scott, who are you looking at catcher?
I mean, you can always look at one of the Yankees options against Clay Buchholz. I mean, I'd be fine with either Gary Sanchez or Brian McCann. I've actually played McCann a couple times recently, and it's kind of like Sanchez is just so the popular pick on DFS sites for Yankees right now that like McCann is going completely unowned. And I mean that he can always run into one, and Clay Buchholz has been absolutely atrocious. So one that I kind of like, if you're looking to go cheap on FanDuel, for $2,800 you can get JT Realmuto against Adam Morgan, and Adam Morgan sucks and is a lefty, which are two good things for JT Realmuto. And also I'm another one of the lower priced stacks that I'll talk about later when it comes to trying to find something to pair with these expensive pitchers today. There's definitely some potential out there for a Mariners stack against Colin McHugh, who has been incredibly average this year. So Mike Zunino is one more guy I'll throw out there. Is like only really only if you're putting together a Mariners stack, because he's very cheap on DraftKings, just 3,000. So I think he'd be an option there. But once again, I'm not playing him as like a one-off. But I think we mentioned everybody else that I had at catcher, yeah.
Real Muto's interesting. I didn't write him down because he's actually struggled with lefties a lot this year, but you have me rethinking it because he struggled with lefties, but Adam Morgan's so bad.
He's really bad, and his splits are disgusting.
He's so bad. He's not going to stay in the game that deep. The Phillies bullpen's so bad that I'm like, you know what? If Real Muto's affordable, I'm fine with that. I don't think he's going to get up there and go, oh no, a lefty Adam Morgan. I can't handle this. Like,
yeah.
Before we spend the next hour railing on Adam Morgan, who, has terrible platoon splits, he has, since his last recall, he's added a new pitch. He's executing it well, and it's the results aren't bad. You're looking at a high 3s ERA and a low 4s FIP over 30-some innings. So he's looked better. He's still homer prone against righties. I'm not saying you avoid the Marlins stack for any reason whatsoever, but maybe you don't expect the full season numbers that he's been putting up. Like he's allowed something like 2.27 home runs per 9 to righties and like a 300, 380, 500 slash. This is something on that order, and I would expect less than that today.
Sure. Yeah. So still willing to stack against him, just not rushing out.
Right. Yeah. Once again, not a top option, but a cheap one.
Yeah, worth considering. I had just a few more catchers. You guys okay with Sandy Leon getting Luis Sessa? I mean, the Red Sox stack is going to be fine.
At this point, the sample size on Sandy Leon is finally getting big enough where I'm like comfortable playing him in DFS. I think I did it for the first time all season last week, and I was just like, "Oh, Sandy Leon, fine,"
Yeah.
It's taken me until mid-September to be okay with picking Sandy Leon, but yes, I am okay with it now.
Yeah. Jonathan Lucroy gets Kendall Graveman. If you want to spend there, I'm fine with that. There's nothing super exciting there. Graveman can be pretty good sometimes, but overall has been pretty whatever. And then the pick I really like, Nick Hundley at home against Christian Friedrich. He likes to hit in Coors. He likes to hit against lefties. Christian Friedrich's nothing special. That's a good matchup for Hundley just in terms of the splits lineup for him. So you can consider that. But there's a lot of places to go, and usually going cheap at catcher is pretty good. So plenty of options. Let's move on to first base, where there's also always way too many. I managed to only write down 5 names, which is pretty good.
I've only got 7.
Yeah, which is plenty of options, but not the million I'm used to. Scott, you want to get us started then at first base? Who are you looking at there?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think Will Myers in Colorado is super obvious. He's expensive, but I mean, there's a very good chance it'll be worth it. Tyler Chatwood has been bad against righties and lefties this year, and once again, it's Coors, so Will Myers is probably going to do some serious damage. David Ortiz and Hanley Ramirez both in play today against Luis Cessa, whatever. He's pretty even on the splits to either side, evenly pretty bad. So I'm cool with either Ortiz or Hanley. I've become a big fan of playing Hanley lately. I find that he goes really low owned on a lot of slates.
Kind of the Brian McCann thing, where everybody's
right?
Going Ortiz.
Yeah, where everybody's going Ortiz, and then Hanley's just sitting there, with like 6% ownership in a good matchup. And then the other guys I've got, once again, if you've got the money to stack the Blue Jays, Edwin Encarnacion against Jared Weaver, pretty much anybody with like a pulse and like a functioning baseball equipment. Like if they have cleats and a bat, I'm okay with playing them against Jared Weaver. Then I've got Joey Votto getting Ryan Vogelsong, which is just a delightful matchup. And then the other two I had are kind of more in the discount side of things. Mitch Moreland getting Kendall Graveman. Like you said, Graveman can be good, but he also has his moments where he really blows up. And when he does really blow up, it's almost always against left-handed hitters. So I would not be surprised at all to see Moreland run into a homer today. And then my last option is, Mark Reynolds, just again going to the Coors thing, and Christian Friedrich is bad against righties when he's not in Coors, and today he is in Coors. So, those are my options. And Mark Reynolds he's not an exciting player. It's kind of like Nick Hundley. He's not thrilling either. But I mean, these guys are not super high priced today. And looking at the way Friedrich struggles against right-handers, and the fact that, 3 of the 4 top most expensive hitters in the Rockies lineup are lefties, I think there's a chance for some, relatively inexpensive Rockies stacks today on the right side of the splits. So I wouldn't be opposed to that. So, yeah, there's some options out there, a nice range of options. I didn't find any real cheap bargain bin options. I mean, that might change later today when the lineups come out and we see if anybody else has just some random AAA dudes in there. But for now, I think first base is, as usual, going to be a position I spend some money at today. And for those of you not on video, my cat has just crawled into my lap as I'm trying to talk and drink coffee. So yeah, that's about all I got on first base. And yeah.
I like the Mark Reynolds one. We don't usually pick cheap at first base, but those options are nice, and I agree that in Coors against the Padres, not only Friedrich but the Padres bullpen is nothing special.
Right.
I think you can do that for sure if you want to go that way.
I'm gonna top off my coffee. I'll be right back in 20 seconds.
Sure, Brad, who do you have at first base? Do you have anybody that Scott missed?
The big one that I have is Miguel Cabrera, who. I happened to look at some batter versus pitcher stuff for JD Martinez because I had a feeling he was good against Kyle Kluber, or Corey Kluber, I mean. Turns out I was wrong. Is Miguel Cabrera, who's very good against Corey Kluber, has a 1,300 OPS and 42 plate appearances. So you have a size sample of 5 home runs in that period. Just seems like he mashes him, and it makes sense. Kluber has a below-average fastball, and Miguel's probably just picking it out. So that's one I'd look at today. He's pretty affordable, and people will probably be staying away from going after Corey Kluber. I do have a couple bargains. Xavier Scruggs is one of them. Very cheap on both sites, $2,000 on FanDuel, $2,500 on DraftKings. Not much of a major league track record yet. He's getting some starts. Hasn't gotten too much work against lefties yet, which surprises me. Well, he's kind of fighting Chris Johnson for playing time. But if Scruggs is in the lineup, he's a solid power option against Adam Morgan today, and again, costs nothing at all. The other guy you could try is Ryan Howard. Big power numbers, is going to start. Has something like 10 home runs in his last 120 plate appearances. He's a pretty solid option for power, and Tom Kohler is just kind of mediocre. He could give up a home run. It's not it's not well out of the realm of possibility, and Howard is very cheap. So those are two guys in the bargain bin you could try.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that at all. So, the Scruggs one is especially sneaky. Not many people are going to be going there, but if he starts and gets Santa Morgan, that'd be just fine. I had just two more names. Jose Abreu gets Ian Kennedy. Ian Kennedy's been a little bit cold lately, and Jose Abreu, went through a good stretch. You could consider that. Not particularly exciting, but certainly an option. And then I wrote Freddie Freeman getting Max Scherzer because Max Scherzer has those, the susceptibility to lefties. But Freddie Freeman and his wife just had a kid, and that was the thing, is he just exited the game to go see his kid get born. And I think that was yesterday, so he's probably not playing today. So that option doesn't work. Congratulations to the Freemans and their child. But if there's lefties you kind of like, I think you can sneak them against Max Scherzer because a lot of people just stay away from him. Not with a ton of confidence, but as options. But other than that, that's all you guys kind of covered the first baseman I had. Let's move on to second base, where I've been having a bunch of options lately, and Brad is no different. Second base is, second base is loaded. Brad, who are your favorites at second base?
So I might as well start at the top. Brian Dozier, super on fire. He's up against Bartolo Colon, who pretty much only throws fastballs, and they're very wily fastballs. But with Dozier able to just sit on the one pitch, I do like that matchup. A good chance that he continues the crazy power surge. Also, another expensive guy, if you have the money for him, Trey Turner is someone, especially on DraftKings. I think he's only outfield in FanDuel.
Yeah.
But if you can get Trey Turner into a lineup most days, it's the right play. He gets on base a lot. He's ahead of guys who drive him in. It's a great situation. You can also go with Daniel Murphy, who's having a fantastic season too. Both up against John Gant. Good matchups for both. Going a little bit further down the list, like Ryan Schimpf up against Tyler Chatwood. That one's at Coors. Yep. He's got Coors Field prices hatched to him, but the matchup's great. He did face Chatwood last week without doing much damage, but it's one of those situations where you got a extreme fly ball hitter, a ground ball pitcher, and those usually really favor the hitter. So Schimpf's a good bet for extra base hits or home runs. Also on the other side of that, you got DJ LeMahieu, always very solid, very steady, good high floor pick for a cash game type scenario. Probably not someone I'm really turning to in a GPP today, just because he's expensive and he's not the most high-ceilinged guy.
Yeah.
I didn't have much in terms of bargains today at second base. Is the one thing. Chase Utley was the one guy who really stood out as someone who's cheap and could have a good game. That's against Zach Greinke, as we mentioned. If you end up with that Dodger stack, Utley will probably be a part of it. Not as likely to hit a home run as many other Dodgers, but could have multiple hits and score multiple times if the other guys click together.
Another pretty high floor. I don't know. I kind of think like he's like a poor man's, not even a poor man's. He's a poor man's LeMahieu by price, but I think you have similar expectations for both players on a day like today, right?
Yeah. Utley's matchup's harder, and he's a lower average hitter. So in general, I think the poor man's LeMahieu fits. But he does have a good OBP, and he has some power, so he makes up for the lack of high average.
Yeah, I like those. I agree. I didn't have a lot of cheaper, lower options at second base. There's so many studs. Scott, who are you looking at second base?
Let's see. Well, as a Twins fan who the only pleasure I've gotten from baseball this season has been watching Brian Dozier, I'll double down on the Brian Dozier pick because that's always super great. Let's see here. The ones he did not mention, I've got Rougned Odor getting Kendall Graveman again, trying to pick on that weakness of Graveman's against lefties. So Rougned Odor, odd option there. Jose Altuve. I still don't love the idea of stacking against Felix because he's just kind of been mediocre without being bad. But I mean, Jose Altuve, it's not a scary matchup for him, and Altuve's price has really dropped on FanDuel. I think they may still be overvaluing Felix, perhaps, and so he's 3,700 today, which is a pretty darn good bargain for Jose Altuve on any day. Once again, if you want to target Colin McHugh and his mediocreness, you can go with Robbie Cano.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely going to be thinking about putting together a Mariners stack here and there today, personally. You've got your kind of mid-tier Dustin Pedroia, Devin Travis. I kind of lump them together because they're once again guys that probably aren't going to hit a home run, probably aren't going to steal a base, but they'll get on base a bunch and hopefully score some runs. That's not really the guy I like to play unless it's part of a stack. That's the only time I'm never going to pick a Devin Travis as a one-off, you know. But then I do have a couple of cheap options. We've got the super flaming red hot Brandon Phillips. Have you guys, he's really hitting the ball lately, and he gets Ryan Vogelsong, and Ryan Vogelsong is bad, but he's especially bad against right-handers. Vogelsong has a bit of a reverse platoon split this year, and with as hot as Brandon Phillips is, and, talking about the cheaper stack options, the Reds are definitely a nice cheap stack option today against Vogelsong. So, yeah, Brandon Phillips, not a bad option. And then Starlin Castro is nice and cheap on pretty much all sites. He's got Clay Buchholz, and Castro's been hitting. He's been hitting the homers. Really, that's when I'm looking for one-off picks or bargain picks in DFS. I'm almost always looking for who's the guy that can homer today, and Starlin Castro against Clay Buchholz that's a pretty good shot of a homer right there. So yeah, those are my options for today. Really quite a range there just in price. So I think second base might be one of those positions that I kind of wait until I fill up the rest of my lineup and then just kind of see what fits.
Yeah, I like those. I didn't know about Brandon Phillips being hot, but that is a good call, especially as a cheaper option.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little more interested in Devin Travis in that stack just because he's been leading off a lot, and maybe that gives him a little bit of a bump for me. But I agree, it makes him a little more interesting as part of a stack. Starlin Castro I talked about last week has been so much better at home than on the road, but he's going to Fenway, and right-handed hitters in Fenway do okay. I don't think that's a terrible place for him to hit or anything. The home road thing for him has been really interesting. I had just a few names you guys didn't mention. Brad, are you interested in Adam Frazier getting Robert Stevenson at all? He's also been batting leadoff a little bit.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Adam Frazier in general. It's a matter of him playing, really.
Yeah, he's been getting in. Some guys have been banged up. If he's in there, especially if he's leading off, I'm thinking about that. If you can get him at second base,
I'm not to interrupt, but I've really turned away from rostering the leadoff guys in DFS because what's their ceiling? Their absolute ceiling is maybe get on base 3 times and steal a base, score a couple runs. You're looking at a 20-point ceiling. If you're in a cash game, that's great. But for GPPs, I'm looking for a guy who can put the ball in the seats.
Right. When it comes to runs versus RBIs, it's just runs are a lot less explosive. It's really hard to come up with a 3 or 4 run game like you can a 3 or 4 RBI game.
Right.
You can do that on one swing, whereas coming around to score 3 or 4 times. I mean, it's something I think about a lot in terms of standard fantasy, not just DFS. Run totals are more of a slow, consistent burn, and RBIs are explosive. They come in bunches. So in terms of DFS, if you're playing GPP or whatever, RBI guys a little more popular than run guys for that reason. So I like leadoff guys, but that's less of an explosive, high ceiling type thing. I agree. The points are there, more consistently maybe, but maybe not as explosive. So different kind of player and pick, but that's worth bringing up for sure. Only other second baseman I had is Logan Forsythe, just because it's an Ubaldo Jimenez day. But Ubaldo Jimenez is doing his weird stretch of being kind of halfway competent, and the Rays don't usually hit righties. I'm not staying away from Ubaldo Jimenez at all, but maybe a little bit of the the Adam Morgan treatment, and that I'm not sprinting out to pick against him as much as I'm okay with picking against him for sure.
I think with Ubaldo, even when he's going well, Even when he's pitching well, I'm still quite confident playing left-handers against him, just because he even when he's pitching well, he's so bad against lefties. So, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be scared about Forsythe either. I mean, he's been hitting the ball for sure.
It's another leadoff guy, and he's right-handed. I think he's fine, but you have a million options at second base. So I don't know that it's where I'm going, but I wanted us to say Ubaldo Jimenez while he's on the slate. All right, let's move on to third base. Brad, who are you looking at third base?
Jumping right off the top, Nolan Arenado. That one's obvious. I don't think we need to talk about too much.
Well, actually, one thing I was going to say, his price is nice and affordable today on both FanDuel and DraftKings. $3,800 on FanDuel, $4,100 on DraftKings. He's cheaper than, on DraftKings, he's cheaper than Josh Donaldson, Yangervis Solarte, Justin Turner, Young-Ho Kong, Kyle Seager, Jose Reyes. He's cheaper than Jose Reyes.
Yeah,
that's good. I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing him costing $5,500 on DraftKings.
Uh-oh.
Oh, did they change it?
Does one of you have to refresh, maybe?
Maybe. I think
if it'll give it to you at that price,
wow.
Scott.
No, they bumped him all the way up to $5,500.
Oh, okay.
That must have been a
price. You got to lock it in.
No, that must have been a glitch. That must have been a glitch or something.
Oh, okay.
Anyways, okay. Well,
you are right about FanDuel, and he's going to be super popular in FanDuel as a result because you can get that into a lineup with Max Scherzer.
Yeah. So if you can afford him, total green light. Who else do you like, Brad?
So like Kyle Seager against Colin McHugh. We've talked about picking on him a little bit. Seager's one I like a little more than the others we've mentioned so far, and someone I'd consider as a one-off too if you're just looking for one guy. He's pretty expensive though, so it's not a situation you're going to run into very often. I like Indians today. We haven't really talked about any of them, but Jason Kipnis is fine. Jose Ramirez, the third baseman, is another one who's fine. Not a big power threat, but I like the idea of going after Michael Fulmer. He's slowed down recently, but he's still done enough this year that no one else is really going to be stacking against him. And Indians, again, one of those slightly affordable stacks where you can get a cohesive unit that might score a lot of points without paying so much that you can't roster a good pitcher too. So just like the other ones we talked about, there's a lot of room for them to just kind of put up 2 runs and leave you in the cold. There's also upside there too. And so Ramirez, Kipnis, one of the first basemen, they all work. Beyond that, I do like Ryan Healy, the adjustments he's made up against Cole Hamels today, the lefty on righty matchup. Hamels is a little homer prone, and Healy's really swinging for the fences these days. So I like the in concept. Again, that's one of those situations where I'm probably doing it as a one-off, and Healy's quite a bit more affordable than Seager, so that makes a little more sense.
Well, I was going to mention just about the A's in general. I'm starting to wonder, with how unbelievably hot that offense has been, I'm starting to wonder, A, when the pricing is going to catch up to the production on these guys, because it has not done so yet, and B, how long can these guys keep this up? This is not a lineup full of expected future all-stars here. It's very interesting that this team's been able to string together as many explosive games as they have recently. So I don't know, how much stock, when you guys are putting together a lineup, how much stock do you put into a hot streak like that for a team? Are you looking to avoid them because you're thinking that players are going to be all over them after they scored double-digit runs almost 3 days in a row now? Or is that a situation you're chasing because the prices haven't adjusted yet? How do you guys like to play something like that?
So in this specific scenario, because I have Hamels, I'm probably avoiding. But
Hamels has been pretty rough lately, though.
It's just a couple starts. I've watched a lot of Cole Hamels over his career, and it all comes down to a couple pitches.
Yeah.
There's going to be 3 pitches in a game that decide whether he's had an amazing start or just kind of gave up 4 or 5 runs.
Yeah.
So
you're right.
And the A's they're definitely a highly volatile offense. If they're playing Martin Perez today, I'd avoid them because I'd expect everyone buying in. Since they're playing Hamels, I'm avoiding them because they're facing a good pitcher. But I'm not afraid to take one or two of them at the same time.
Right, yeah. I think it's a good one-off situation for sure.
Yeah.
You also mentioned Ryan Healy, and I had to bring it up because Matt and I had a discussion this week about how his name is pronounced, and I'm with you. I just read it and went, "Oh yeah, Ryan. That's Ryan. It's spelled funky, but that's Ryan Healy." And then Matt and I realized we don't know that for sure, and then I did some quick Googling on it and couldn't find a pronunciation guide. But you're with me. You just assume that RYON is Ryan Healy.
I've heard other people call him Ryan. I haven't listened to an A's broadcast in a while, so I can't.
Well, I wonder why.
Yeah, I just assumed that, and we asked for some tweets, and nobody ever had a confirmation for us about that it's Ryan Healy.
Actually, you could put the French twist on it and have it be Real.
Yeah.
He hit a monster shot the other day.
That wasn't the longest. I thought I heard it was the longest non-Coors homer of the year.
Really, I knew it was.
It's the fifth longest of the season I saw.
Okay.
Yeah.
Don't know about context, but
still, I wouldn't be surprised if 1 through 4 were all at Coors.
Yeah, no, I don't think anyone would.
Has some pop. Interesting guy. And getting Hamels, I'm a little intrigued there. Brad, any other third baseman for you?
I feel like I'm forgetting someone, but I'm not remembering who it is.
Well,
I'm scrolling and not seeing. Oh, Eugenio Suarez. He hasn't been hitting for much power lately, which kind of turns me off a little bit. He's got like 4 home runs since the All-Star break. But and up against Ryan Vogelsong, the matchup's fine. It's at Cincinnati, so it's a good place for power. He's hitting well besides the lack of power, but it's kind of leaning on a 389 BABIP. It's a solid play, one that shouldn't be too popular.
Especially since I don't think a lot of people probably know or pay attention close enough to realize that Vogelsong has those reverse platoon splits. So I think you could be right about him being low owned, again, just because people see that righty on righty and not realize that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Scott, who do you have at third base?
You could always go with Josh Donaldson, always in play, especially against Jared Weaver. He's super expensive, but there's a reason for that. Yergurus Solarte is in a great spot against Chatwood. Once again, Padres are just awesome today. What I really like, we were talking earlier about picking on Zach Greinke, but I think Justin Turner would be a really good one-off pick, or as part of a Dodgers stack. Justin Turner is one of those guys who hits right-handers far, far better than he hits left-handers. He has one of the most extreme reverse platoon splits of any star player in Major League Baseball. It's just incredible. And Greinke's been giving it up to both sides of the plate, so I think Justin Turner is a great pick today. I love Justin Turner a lot of days because once again, not a lot of people are super aware of his extreme reverse platoon splits as a hitter, and I think that's a spot where you can get a guy who has really high upside and really low ownership on a lot of days. Most DFS players are going to sit there and scroll down and be like, "Oh, Justin Turner against Zach Greinke." They'll move on. So I also, Anthony Rendon. Once again, just anybody against John Gant because John Gant is John Gant. Young-Ho Kong, red hot lately. Hits righties once again, just like Justin Turner hits righties way, way, way better than lefties. So getting Robert Stevenson in Cincinnati today is a very enticing matchup. He's ungodly expensive on DraftKings. If you're playing on FanDuel, I'm all in on playing Young-Ho Kong. I think I'll probably be playing him a lot today. The only other one, actually, I mentioned him jokingly when I made my incorrect point about Arenado being cheap on DraftKings, but on FanDuel, Jose Reyes is $2,800, and he gets Jose Berrios, who, as a Twins fan, for those of you listening and not watching, I'm wearing a Twins shirt right now. I've watched almost every one of Berrios' starts, and for as bad as he's been, he might be getting worse as the season goes along. I think he is possibly the least prepared Major League pitcher right now for facing Major League hitting. It is absolutely incredible how he cannot get outs. I think in his last game, by the time he got his 5th out, he already had 4 walks. And it's just he has no idea where the ball's going. Unfortunately for him, the hitters seem to have a great idea of where it's going. So, I mean, Jose Reyes, $2,800. He's actually been hitting for quite a bit of power, which has been surprising. And Berrios is just so atrocious that, I mean, for $2,800, there's actually quite a bit of upside for Jose Reyes today.
Sure. Yeah, Berrios, talented guy. Like, might have a future, but nothing yet. Yeah.
He's got the stuff. I mean, you can see it when he pitches. You're like, oh, okay, I can see why he's a prospect, but I can also see why he's still a prospect instead of a guy that has a sub-10 ERA in the majors, which he might. I think it's like 9.88 right now.
Yeah,
and like
in
50-some innings. It's not like it's even that small of a sample anymore. He's given up like 60 earned runs in 50-some innings. It's amazing.
It's impressive in an unfortunate way. Yeah, if you want to stack some Mets you like, I'm fine with that for sure.
And once again, it'll be cheap because a lot of these Mets guys are cheap.
Yep. I only had a few third basemen you guys didn't mention. Nothing exciting. You think Manny Machado against Chris Archer, I guess. I mean, Chris Archer is not exploitable, but he's also not 2015 Chris Archer. And it's Manny Machado. You'll be fine. And then same on the flip side, I have Evan Longoria getting Ubaldo. And Evan Longoria has had a pretty good year, and he can hit righties just fine. So if you want to do that, I don't have a problem with that. Neither of them are that clever. You guys covered most of the good ones at third base. Let's get into shortstop. Brad, who are you looking at shortstop for Friday?
So lack of options today, actually. I'll start with 2 that I really like who probably aren't at the top of everyone's list. Brad Miller up against Ubaldo Jimenez.
Yeah.
Love Brad Miller at Camden Yards in general. Great park for left-handed power. Jimenez has, I think it's a 1.72 home run per 9 against left-handed hitters.
Yeah.
So he's prone to lefties. The park's in his favor too. So I like Miller. He's going back cleanup. The situation's prime for him. The other guy I really like is Jose Peraza up against Ryan Vogelsong. I've been using Peraza a lot lately. Very much a high floor type pick as opposed to the high ceiling play, but still a good shot at getting 5 balls in play today. If he reaches base 3 times, he'll steal a base at least probably.
That's the thing about like a guy like Peraza who's so incredibly fast that he can steal. He's a legit threat to steal multiple bases. That's a leadoff type guy that I'm way more comfortable taking.
Peraza is classic D. Gordon right now. D. Gordon was good. That is what Peraza is doing now.
Yep.
So that's how you should treat him, and the situation's right to use him today.
Yeah, I like that. Any other shortstops stick out to you?
Obviously, Corey Seager. Anytime you can afford Corey Seager, go ahead. And in Arizona, it's just doubly enticing. I mentioned liking an Indian stack as something that might be a little affordable. Lindor's not the most affordable of those Indians, but he's quite talented, and if you can get him in as part of that stack, do it. And then I like Troy Tulowitzki up against Jared Weaver, because why not?
Sure. Yeah, I had Tulo too. I had, like Scott said, anybody in the Toronto lineup that you're okay with that, can pick up a bat, I can go with there. Scott, who'd you have at shortstop?
I'm always down with playing Xander Bogaerts. He gets Luis Cessa. Not afraid of that matchup at all. Bogaerts has a really nice price on DraftKings today. He's pretty affordable, so I wouldn't mind that. It's either part of a stack or a one-off. You've got the weirdly powerful Asdrubal Cabrera. He's up to 18 homers this year. Just where did that come from? But Asdrubal Cabrera, even with the weird little power surge this year, and I just looked up, he's up to 19 homers. All right, so 19 home runs for Asdrubal Cabrera this year. Who would have ever seen that coming? But once again, he's got Berrios, which is just, all hands on deck against Jose Berrios, because there'll probably be 14 runs on the board by the time there's 1 out in the first inning. Asdrubal Cabrera, he's outrageously inexpensive on DraftKings. So for those of you on DraftKings, just jump all over Asdrubal Cabrera today. He's incredibly cheap. The only other ones I had, not really excited about either of them. I mean, if you're looking for a one-off from Oakland, Marcus Semien is a really good option because he annihilates lefties, and he's been red hot lately after a pretty extended cold stretch. He's really turned it back on again. So Semion's a guy I'm comfortable with if you want to go a little cheaper. And another guy that I like a little cheaper is, I don't usually like targeting guys playing in San Francisco, but Aledmus Diaz is back, and he's got Matt Moore. And Diaz is very cheap pretty much across all sites, and Matt Moore doesn't scare me at all. I'm not doing a Cardinals stack today, once again, as I said, there's better options, and that park is so bad for suppressing homers. But Diaz is one of those just like kind of wide range of ways that he can get you points, and I like that matchup for him. But that's about all I had. Well, not personally, I'm probably going to be rostering Seager if I can afford him, and either Asdrubal or Tulo if I can't.
Yeah. You took the last ones I had. I had Aledmus Diaz. I didn't know if you had
Miller too. Super excited about him.
And Jed Jerko, maybe kind of lost his job to Aledmus Diaz. It's such a crowded, weird infield going on at St. Louis, but Jed Jerko's hit well enough in the second half. I think he can still find some starts.
And against a lefty, I highly doubt that Colton Wong's going to be starting, so there's a spot for him there.
Yeah, so wherever Jed Jerko is, hopefully you can get him at shortstop, and if you can, play him at shortstop, getting Matt Moore. He hasn't done great against lefties this year. Brad and I have discussed that we're not that worried about that. I'm more worried about San Francisco than I am worried about it being Matt Moore.
Right.
So I don't love it, but again, his second half's been so strong. If you want to play Jed Jerko, if he gets in the lineup against Matt Moore, I don't think you're crazy at all. I think you can do that. So other than that, you guys stole my shortstops. I agree. I love Brad Miller. I think that's great. Jose Peraza, sneaky Dribble Cabrera. There's lots of places to go. Shortstop's not bad today. Let's get in the outfield where there are surely a million options. Brad, who are your favorite places to go for outfield?
It's a green light day for Mike Trout. He likes R.A. Dickey. That's one of the places I actually look at batter versus pitcher data.
He's for knuckleballers,
Yeah, he Trout has no problems with R.A. Dickey. So it's green light day for him if you have the money. Same for the Boston offense against Luis Cessa. That's mostly Mookie Betts and Jackie Bradley Jr. If Benintendi's in there, he usually is batting ninth, which obviously isn't advantageous, but he's also usually pretty cheap too. And I haven't checked his price today, but I assume that holds true.
I'll take a look at it while you're talking.
Yeah. Another super expensive outfield. Trey Turner costs more than Bryce Harper. That's something I would never anticipate.
I noticed that, and it's on both. It's on like
both sides.
Yeah.
It's not a lot more than Bryce Harper, but it's more.
Okay, so
that itself is interesting.
I looked up Jackie Bradley for you. On FanDuel, he's 3,400, but on DraftKings, he's 5,100.
Right, yeah, so Bradley's more expensive. Benintendi's 2,900 on DraftKings, so that's the affordable option there.
Yeah, on FanDuel, I'd be fine with Bradley still.
Yeah.
Benintendi, if you just want somebody cheap as part of that Red Sox stack, he's holding his own. Doing okay.
Yeah. The other outfield unit I really like today, a couple Tampa Bay Rays, Kevin Kiermaier and Corey Dickerson.
Yep.
Both red hot right now, both lefties at Camden Yards against Ubaldo, who, as I mentioned, not so great against lefties.
Yeah.
Excellent situation, and they're fairly affordable.
Okay, Scott, who's sticking out to you in the outfield? Your favorites for Friday?
You want me to go expensive or cheap, or what do you want me to go?
Yeah, we can knock out the expensive ones off the top.
Okay.
Of the list. Like if you want Jose Bautista, getting Jared Weaver, green light, sure.
Right. Yeah. Cespedes against Barrios. That's good, and Cespedes' price has dropped pretty nicely on DraftKings. He's at an affordable spot today. So Cespedes against Barrios. Alex Dickerson doesn't really excite me as a player, but he does have some pop, and he's playing in Coors against Tyler Chatwood. So if you want to go there, I wouldn't blame you, especially if you're putting together a Padres stack. He should probably be part of it. Giancarlo Stanton is apparently going to play in the outfield tonight. So a lot of people might not notice that, and Giancarlo Stanton could go very low owned against Adam Morgan, which, as we've talked, for right-handed hitters, that's a pretty good matchup. And, Giancarlo hasn't played the field in a long time, so, we'll see how it goes. But, rumors are that he will be starting and playing the field today. So, might be a nice sneaky day for Giancarlo.
I like that. I also like Marcelo Ozuna getting Adam Morgan. That's a green light for sure.
Yep.
Ozuna has big numbers against lefties.
Yes, he does.
That's a great one. And then if we're gonna dive into it, we're gonna get real deep. Do you think Jeff Francoeur starts?
Too deep.
Not too far. That would have him having to start over one of them or Christian Yelich, and we don't know if that'll actually happen. And I totally respect your call of it being too deep. That might be too much. I might have gone too far there. But him getting a lefty, him getting Adam Morgan, I would at least bring it up on a podcast. I don't know I would pick it. but yeah, I got to write down Jeff Francoeur. On the other side, Brad, your boy Roman Quinn, I've seen not just you, but other people annoyed here. He has not showed up on all the DFS sites, right?
Yeah,
no, FanGraphs left him out still. It's been a while.
Yeah.
I've been them for several days in a row, and they keep telling me that, he's in there, and then the next contest comes out and he's not in there. So they've told me again that he's in there, so we'll see if he's there tomorrow. But I've been looking for him because I've been expecting him to be a really, really good bargain play, just like Peraza.
Yeah, I brought him up on the show this week. Matt's comment was that he has the best evil villain name that he's ever heard. It was pretty good. I saw him in the fall league, and he was. He's a little guy, but he's super fast. Plays good outfield. They're batting him near the top of the lineup. So far, so good. Very small sample size, but skipped AAA, jumped up, and is batting out of the 2-hole just fine. That's a fine, cheap third outfield pick for sure. And he gets Tom Kohler, so whatever. If you can get, depending on where you're playing, if you can get Roman Quinn, that's an option, right?
Oh, yeah. He's someone I like, and I haven't checked his DraftKings price, but it's 2,500.
Yeah.
Wow, that's cheap.
That's exactly what you want to fill in your Max Scherzer, Chris Sale lineup.
Yeah. If you, again, I'm not pumped about San Francisco, but Stephen Piscotty getting a lefty is always worth looking at. He gets Matt Moore. He crushes lefties. Should be fine there. I wrote the A's outfield down. That's Chris Davis. That's Danny Valencia. That's Jake Smolinski. They can all hit lefties, and you're kind of homer hunting against Cole Hamels, hoping they catch that mistake. It's kind of volatile, but I think they're options, especially Chris with a K, Davis. I wrote down Gregory Polanco getting Robert Stevenson. We haven't picked many Pirates.
Is Valencia playing? Weren't they going to cut him and then said they'll hang on to him?
Yeah, it turned out that the cutting was bad reporting, I guess, or they changed their mind after it was released.
Yeah.
I don't know, but in any case, he's still on the team. He's still playing a fair amount. You have to watch out for spot starts with who was it? The two call-ups I just had. Was it Matt Olson and third baseman Renato? I need to look up his name.
Okay, Valencia is still
Renato
playing.
Nunez.
Valencia is still playing regularly. Never mind. Yeah.
Messy lineup, but if you want a handful of them can hit lefties pretty well. I would consider them against Cole Hamels.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't really picked against Robert Stevenson. I wrote down Gregory Polanco. Why?
No, Polanco. Polanco hasn't had like an extra base hit in 3 months. He's been he's seriously been like a pitcher level hitter lately.
I was looking for Pirates I like against Robert Stevenson.
That's the thing. I actually wrote down Stevenson as an option for pitchers because I hate all these Pirates. You got, McCutchen is pretty much okay. I'm afraid of Andrew McCutchen.
Okay.
Who else in this lineup?
Yeah.
Marte is still out. I mean, Polanco hasn't hit a baseball in like weeks. I mean, there's basically two guys. You know, you've got McCutcheon and Kong, and that's the only spots you have to work around. Other than that, this lineup is really bad. And
so it's not avoiding Robert Stevenson. It's just not finding much.
And I mean, I'm totally happy. I would, you know, Andrew McCutcheon today, especially on DraftKings. He's only $3,900 on DraftKings. That's a heck of a bargain for Andrew McCutcheon. So yeah, I'm on board with that for sure.
The Pirates put up 1 million runs on Thursday, but I agree, it's not a real inspiring offense. I don't know. Trying to see who else I had on my list. Ryan Rayburn is the righty in course. They'll get Christian Friedrich if he should, you know, hopefully get a start there. I like that. I'd consider that. I mean, I picked Max Kepler against Bartolo Colon. If you're picking against Bartolo Colon, it's always just kind of a whatever pick. Last one that I kind of like, Ender Inciarte should lead off for the Braves and start against Max Scherzer. Again, you're being real contrarian and sneaky in a GPP type format, but if you want to get real deep and try and pick a lefty against Scherzer, there's a weakness there, and people just don't think about it because his numbers are so flashy. But Ender Inciarte's been good since he's been back. He's left-handed against Scherzer. I'm at least thinking about it.
Who's got the train?
I do. Pardon the train going by my house again. This happens. Can't control it.
Okay, so one thing I was looking up is I was thinking about Rayburn last night myself, and then I looked up his performance. You guys know when he hit his last home run?
I don't.
He's been cold.
Wow, that train is hot though.
Pardon me.
That's all good. The last time he hit a home run was as a pinch hitter on July 15th.
Oh boy!
It has been over 2 months since Ryan Rayburn has left the yard.
I have to cop to not being up on Ryan Rayburn.
I had no idea until I looked it up last night, and I was like, wow, like his average points per game are like a lot lower than I thought they would be. And then I looked it up, and I was like, wow, yeah, exactly. And I had completely not noticed until last night when I was researching for this show. I was just like, whoa, where did your power go, Ryan Rayburn? It's weird.
Good call by Scott then. Maybe less interested in Ryan Rayburn. Brad, did you have any other outfielders that we can't leave behind?
I might have spaced out while we talked about them, but Padres outfield, Alex Dickerson and Travis Jankowski especially. Of course. And then Blue Jays outfield. Jose Bautista, if you're willing to pay for the cold one. Michael Saunders has the lefty and righty matchup, and then I'd even go with Kevin Pillar, all up against Jared Weaver. Why not?
So again, if you have a pulse, a bat, and some spikes, I'm cool with rostering you against Jared Weaver.
Yeah. Scott, were there any outfielders that we can't leave behind for you?
Yeah, I've got a couple more. I once again just load up against Barrios, so Curtis Granderson is an option. I like Carlos Beltran getting Graveman. Once again, Beltran and Nomar Mazara, really lefties against Graveman all day long. Lefties. Seth Smith, if you're looking to have a cheap guy to throw into a Mariners stack, I like that. Reds outfielders. Okay, so Vogelsong is not very scary, and on DraftKings, priced correctly, I would say about at 4,600. Adam Duvall's $2,700 on FanDuel today, and he's got Ryan Vogelsong. That's about as good of a position as you're going to find for Adam Duvall, and he's $2,700. So that's like probably my top value pick of the day. Like, that is just ridiculous. How did he fall to $2,700? And I looked at it, I was like, has he been slumping? And the answer is no. So I have no idea how his price point fell so far down. But Adam Duvall is a guy I'm absolutely interested in. And then other than that, I think we've mentioned everybody except I was going to say just point out that the Dodgers outfield, if you want to do the Dodgers stack thing, cheap exposure to it is the outfield. I mean, on FanDuel, every Dodgers outfielder is under $3,000. All of them. Not a single Dodgers outfielder exceeds $2,900. That's Josh Reddick. So Reddick, $2,900. Peterson and Puig are $2,600. if you're stacking against Greinke, this is where your value's at.
Yeah, that's too cheap. I agree. Those are worth looking at if you're hoping for the Zach Greinke blow.
Well, and especially in Arizona. I mean, when it comes to making DFS lineups, I treat Arizona almost as strongly as Coors. Obviously, not quite as much, but I mean, for power, it's up there, man. And all three of those guys have have plenty of power to run into one against Greinke, and those prices are just great. So
yep, that's I'm into that. Those are worth considering. Let's knock out these pitchers. There's plenty of places to go. Not as many as some 14 game slates we have, but plenty. Brad, you taking Chris Archer in Baltimore? You okay with that?
Yeah, there's 5 aces I have no problem taking. They happen to be the 5 most expensive players on
right.
DraftKings.
Yeah.
Right, so
also on FanDuel.
Scherzer against the Braves, yes, go good. Kluber against the Tigers is the one I'm a little reticent about, just because of his price, and some of the Tigers actually do hit Kluber historically.
Right, especially Miggy.
they're a good lineup. It's a tough unit to get through when you don't have a plus fastball.
And I mean, we do talk, like, we joke about batter versus pitcher stuff. And although I will point out that in his career, Miguel Cabrera is 21 for 42 with 5 homers off of Kluber.
Right.
That's actually that's at the point where we're getting to a bit of a sample size. It's like 50 plate appearances,
Yeah, for Brad's into that, and I can't argue with that for sure.
Well, on the other hand, though, if you want to be contrarian, like, Kluber will you take Scherzer, Kluber, Sale. Kluber's by far going to be the least owned of those 3 players. I mean, obviously, I don't think it's even going to be close. And in his last 3 or 4 starts, Kluber's striking out everyone. So, I mean, the upside, I think, is just as high as the other guys. I think his floor is just lower.
A little riskier.
I'm really going to be thinking about playing Kluber today, because if he has one of his classic Kluber games and gets like 10, 11 strikeouts and a win, you're going to get that from a guy that nobody else, hardly anybody else really had. So it's an interesting spot today, because Scherzer and Sale both have such fabulous matchups that I think Kluber is just going to go completely ignored. But then the other part of me is like, is that even worth being contrarian? Is it even worth swerving off of those guys when they have such great matchups? So it's kind of a weird little game theory spot there.
Yeah.
And there is some downside to Sale. We'll be able to pick up on it more later. It's weather. Storm risk of about 60% through the entire game. And all afternoon, all night, basically, in Kansas City.
That would not surprise me.
So we'll see if that game gets in, if we need to pull Sale from our lineups or move forward. And obviously that would bleed into Kluber more, probably, because he's priced closer to Kluber than Scherzer.
Mm-hmm.
So there's those 3, and then you're fine with Chris Archer. Who's this 5th ace? Is it Cole Hamels?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
the A's are a little bit risky as an opponent, just because they do have so much thump, especially since the game is in Texas. But at the same time, Hamels, he could throw a complete game, 10 strikeouts, 1 run. It's not out of his skill set.
You okay with Felix getting the Astros?
No. No.
I'm just not in on Felix anymore.
Yeah. And he's still expensive.
If we keep talking over each other. Scott summed it up well earlier. He's not really just terrible, but he's not winning either. He's kind of like Justin Verlander last year.
Yeah. It's very whatever. You mentioned Michael Fulmer running out of gas. Are you staying away from him going to Cleveland?
Yeah, I'm not taking any shares of Fulmer today. It could work for you. I'm not saying don't try it. It's not for me.
I'm very rarely comfortable this year starting a pitcher at Cleveland. Like that, Cleveland is so freaking good at home. They are so good at home, and I just don't see the risk reward ratio there paying off.
It's tough. How about getting the more mid level guys? Ian Kennedy getting the White Sox. He's cooled off a little bit. No. For you. You both shake your heads.
The White Sox aren't very good, but
neither is Ian Kennedy.
Yeah.
He went through a hot stretch. But
he's another guy like Fulmer. I can see him having a good game. Like it's not a terrible pick to make if you're trying to pick someone who's not going to be super popular.
Yeah.
We got the rain in the forecast. You got to beat Sale somehow. And then the White Sox, for as bad as they are, they do have some power hitters, so it's not like a free matchup.
Yep. How about Zach Greinke getting the Dodgers? No way. Not after how last time went. Yeah, Rays over 4.
Yeah, no way.
It's the safe scenario for me. Yeah, it could turn out to be fine. It's not something that I'm expecting to be fine.
Well, and once again, it comes down to also, are you willing to pay the money to roster these guys that you're not even excited about? Like, I mean, we just talked about, like, both Felix and Greinke. You're still spending a lot of money if you want to roster these guys.
Yeah,
you know? And like
and very slowly to them. DraftKings are cheap. Relatively.
Yeah, and like I understand the desire to be contrarian and to pick that lineup that nobody else picked, but you know, there's a reason nobody else picked these guys. It's because their prices are high and their upsides are low.
How about the flip side of that? Kenta Maeda going to Arizona. Not a great place to pitch, but a pretty okay pitcher. Is he just not high enough ceiling for either of you?
Yeah.
Doesn't pitch deep enough in the games for me.
Yep. That's it. Yeah. Let me see here. I want to look and see. Okay, so the last
he pitches 6 innings every time.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that exact thing. And okay, so he has pitched 7 innings. You want to guess how many times Kenta Maeda has pitched 7 innings this year?
I think it's 1.
It is 1.
Yeah.
One time, and it was against the Padres.
Decent pitcher, doesn't go that deep, so useful.
I mean,
but
I would love him if he had the potential to go 7 innings on a regular basis. He'd be great.
Yep. Okay, just a few more left on my list. If you want one of those risky guys that has a ceiling you can squint at, are you considering Matt Moore at home against the Cardinals? Not a great matchup, but
considering Matt Moore, considering Luke Weaver on the other side of it, they're both.
I like Luke Weaver. That's the one I like a lot, actually. Matt and I both picked him as our Field of Streams pick. He's less than 50% on Yahoo leagues.
Yeah.
Weaver's been
San
good.
Francisco is historically ice cold. Like they're so something's not good there.
It was funny.
Yeah. So I'm fine with Luke Weaver. Matt Moore for me is just always a volatile option. I mean, sometimes he's on and racks up the strikeouts, and sometimes he walks the ballpark. But if you just if you want to take some risks in a GPP, you could do that with Matt Moore.
I have a feeling that, especially on DraftKings, pretty much every lineup's going to have a Weaver or more in it. So they're both going to be very popular. And then on FanDuel, everyone who's not using an ace is going to be using Weaver or more.
Yeah, might be too popular.
That might push you towards some of these other options that are kind of harder to see performing well, like a Fulmer or a Kennedy.
All right, I wrote down Bartolo Colon getting the Twins, but again, picking against Bartolo Colon or picking him is always just kind of putting your hands in the air and going, could be fine, but not a huge upside, but it could be okay. The last name I had written down, pitcher-wise, Tyler Chatwood gets the Padres. No way in Coors. Can't do it. I don't know. Last time
thinner slate, I can get behind it. There's too much out there.
Yeah, if we were looking at a 5-game slate.
At that price point, I'd take a stab at Morgan before Chatwood.
Yeah. Okay.
And I don't want to take a stab at Morgan.
I was going to ask if you had anybody else. You thinking about Adam Morgan, actually?
No, I'm not. Same thing as Chatwood. Thinner slate, I could get behind it. Maybe see if something works out.
Is there anybody else? I've run out of names on my list. Anybody else you're even thinking about here, Brad, at pitcher?
You could try to stretch for Kendall Graveman. I know we've talked about exploiting him. He's sometimes fine.
Yeah.
We're kind of in the territory of sometimes fine pitchers. That's what you're going for with what's left.
How about anybody else for you, Scott? Any pitchers you feel need to get considered?
Yeah. I'm going to talk – I mean, if you want to go real cheap, and like I said, I mean, you have – the way I see it, you have 2 options today. You pay a lot of money for one of these ace pitchers and try to put together a cheap stack and a few inexpensive one-offs to put together your super expensive pitcher lineup. That's one option. Your other option is to go cheap at pitcher and try to load up on some of these great hitting matchups today. If you want to do the second option, I'm not opposed to Robert Stevenson, who we have not talked about yet. He's going to be very inconsistent. He has been very inconsistent over his starts thus far. At the same time, we're talking about a guy who throws 95, 96. He is the unquestioned top prospect in the Reds in the Reds system, and he's already shown us that he does have the capability to put up a big game. I mean, he has gotten hit around a little bit in 2 of his starts, but 2 starts ago against the Mets, he struck out 9 and walked 1 in 5 1/3 innings. The start, like I said, he's not a sure thing. That's why he's incredibly cheap. But he's getting the Pirates, and like we were saying, it's incredibly difficult to find Pirates that you like because none of them are doing anything right now unless you're named Young Ho Kong or Andrew McCutchen. So you've got a lineup with basically 7 easy outs and 2 tough outs in it, and a guy who is still green. He's still very fresh to the majors, but absolutely has the talent level to put together, a high strikeout game and go 6 or 7 innings. And, when you're looking to go cheap at pitcher and load up with bats, that's the kind of guy you're looking for because nobody's going to own him. Nobody's going to own him. But, I mean, when you've got a guy who throws 95 and is facing a dilapidated offense, that's somebody I'm looking at. Sure. You can put together a ridiculous lineup with Robert Stevenson.
Yeah. Brad, can you squint and see an option in Robert Stevenson?
Yeah, the squinting's there.
Yeah.
It's
with anybody at that price point, there's squinting involved. But when we're talking big GPPs, would it shock you if with the way Pittsburgh's been hitting lately? They scored a lot of runs yesterday, but still, like with the way they're hitting in general lately, with Marte hurt and Polanco, might as well be hurt for all the production he's putting up. That's 2 of their 3 best players are basically not around. And so would it surprise you if Stevenson went 7 innings with 8 strikeouts and got the win? It wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah.
It would also not surprise me if he gets knocked out of the game in the 3rd inning. That's the volatility that you're dealing with. But, if you want to put together a lineup with, that's the only way you're going to be able to afford one of these more expensive stacks we're talking about. Like if you're gonna pick a Scherzer, a Kluber, a Sale, it's entirely irrelevant for you to even listen to us talking about like the Trey Turners and the Corey Seagers of the world because you are not playing them.
Yeah. It's a GPP option for sure, and I like that he's a prospect. There's upside there.
Especially on DraftKings as a second pitcher for 6,200. He's got he's got strikeout upside. Playing against an offense that's really scuffling. So
yep. So that's probably the end of the pitcher line for Friday. That's
definitely the end. There's nobody behind him.
Let's take some quick peeks at Saturday and Sunday before we get out of here. On Saturday, Trevor Williams is making his first start for the Pirates against the Reds. That's kind of interesting. I like Brandon Finnegan on the other side. Seth Lugo is up to 47% owned, which means he's still eligible. He's that spin rate darling. I'm taking him getting the Twins. That's my Field of Streams pick. Matt is taking Zach Davies at Wrigley, hoping for the 2-day hangover for the Cubs, but Zach Davies is interesting there. The other name that stuck out to me is Jason Vargas shows up for the Royals. And I was like, oh, yeah, Jason Vargas is a guy. Jason Vargas is back. I don't know that I'm streaming him or anything, but I'm at least like, oh, Jason Vargas is back.
My goodness.
Brad.
I didn't realize he was still around. He's making, holy my goodness, he's making $8.5 million this year.
Yep. Brad, anybody on the Saturday slate stick out to you at all?
Not really at the lower end of the scale. I am interested by this Verlander Carrasco game. It's kind of a classic matchup. We get these type of matchups between the Tigers and Indians pretty frequently, and they're always fun to watch. So that's one I'll be tuning into if I have the time.
Yeah. Anything jumping off the page to you, Scott, on Saturday, either to watch or to stream or anything?
No, because I completely forgot to look at the weekend, as I do every single time we do this.
That's okay. We're just peeking at it. We're acknowledging. We're not running it down as much as acknowledging that there are games this weekend.
There are. I agree with that, and I support that. I support that notion. Yes.
And then on Sunday, Matt is hoping for ice cold Mets. He's taking the volatile Kyle Gibson going to New York. Kyle Gibson every once in a while has good starts, and the Mets are an okay matchup. I'm taking Robbie Ray, who's been red hot and is still under 50% owned somehow. He gets the Dodgers, who are the worst lineup against lefties in baseball. Can't hit lefties at all. If they run into lefties in the playoffs, it's going to get real ugly real quick.
Yeah.
So I love that matchup for Robbie Ray. Yeah.
No one's taking De Leon or Reyes. Those are too exciting.
They're definitely exciting. Those are good prospects. I mean, I just love Robbie Ray in that matchup.
I like the Ray pick too. That one's too good to pass up.
As someone who's wearing a Twins shirt, I highly question the Kyle Gibson pick.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, he just turns in some 8 shutout innings thing. Where you're like, where did that come from? Sometimes he's on. He's more off and off. Matt's admittedly behind in the contest right now. I think he's trying to play catch up.
So he's on tilt right now and just
he's
reaching for
trying to catch up.
That's exactly when you whip out De Leon or Reyes. You say, I need 12 strikeouts in 5 innings.
You're struggling when you're picking Kyle Gibson over, and his 5.08 ERA for the season over those guys. Oh man, 6.18 K per 9, 3.3 walks per 9. What a
weird picture.
Show. If by weird you mean awful, then yes.
I can see why you'd be frustrated. Jose De Leon, Dodgers pitcher.
Really I love De Leon. I got to see him pitch a couple times in Oklahoma City, and man, he can really. When he's on, he is really, really on. That guy's got crazy stuff.
That's interesting, and Alex Reyes getting the ice cold Giants is also interesting. I agree, Brad. Those are ones to watch. Scott, nothing else sticking out to you on Sunday either. Colby Lewis is back. He gets the A's.
Woo!
I at least look at that. Went okay. All right.
Well, another thing I was going to mention real quick about the 2 rookie pitchers is that once again, this is a situation where I think you look for hangover lineups because I mean. If Sundays are a day where we often see hangover lineups in June, not to mention September. And if one of those guys is facing a hangover lineup, then I'm real interested.
Yep. Yeah, definitely keep an eye on that through the weekend. Keep an eye on that through next week. We'll talk about it when we have shows. But looking for hangover lineups in this part of the season for sure. That should about do it for us for Friday for the weekend. Scott is on Twitter at Scott Strandberg. Scott, what have you been working on lately? What can people find from you?
Not using social media, I guess. Yeah. I realized this morning when I retweeted your thing about this show that I haven't tweeted in over a month. I think
Which makes you a great follow.
Oh yeah. Follow me for absolutely nothing. Not up to a whole lot. Standard stuff. Nothing.
Still writing in photographs though. Can find your work.
I am. Yes, I am. So there'll be something out this coming Monday. I just don't know what it is yet.
Yeah. Brad is on Twitter at Baseball A Team. Brad, what's going on lately with you?
Mostly trying to get through the next 2.5 weeks without completely burning out, and then I get to recover and write about strategy and fun stuff instead of player picks.
Yeah, we are in the final stretch here. We got 2 more of these live shows coming up. 2 more weeks of podcasts for sure.
And you know what happens after that?
Sleep a little bit.
After that, it's football season.
People will tell you that's that now, and I'm just not. Yeah, I'm with you.
God,
it's never football season.
No. I'm sorry. I've got
playoffs, and it's dynasty season.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Well, that should do it for us. I'm on Twitter at HigginsFOS. We all love hearing from you. Thanks for listening to this show. Good luck with your picks on Friday and on the weekend, and we will talk to you on Monday.